Today on the Eye of Power podcast, it's my great pleasure to welcome a friend of mine, Amber Vilhauer, whose company, Books and Business and NGNG Enterprises, helps people get in touch with their unique voice and put it out there in the world. She's a fantastic coach, mentor, speaker. She's mastermind, uh, business partner, just a multi-talented person that's really you're going to have a great treat getting to know a little bit. And Amber and I explore all kinds of things about what what her journey's been and how she's come to the insights that she has and the value that she gives people. So without further ado, let's welcome Amber Vilhauer to the show. Welcome to the Eye of Power podcast. I'm your host, Tom Dardick. But this podcast is not about me. It's about you and your power. It's time to claim yours. So thanks for joining me today, Amber. I appreciate it so much.
No, Tom, I'm such a big Tom Dardick fan. I mean, seriously, the Eye of Power, when I first was introduced to it, I just had so many questions. I was instantly struck. I thought it was brilliant. And we've known each other about a year now,
Yeah,
almost.
coming up on a
And
year. Wow.
I've loved every single engagement, every single conversation with you. So this is going to be a real treat for me.
That really, really makes me feel good. I mean, the audience doesn't know yet, but they will as we go on. They'll find out the kind of person you are, and coming from you, that means a whole heck of a lot. So thank you, Amber, so much. We are birds of a feather. The Eye of Power is born to try to help people see their agency, see the ways that they are connected with their power, the things that they do that perhaps unintentionally or unconsciously bleed away power. We all do it. It's not a character flaw. And you're on a similar journey, and you have a book that came out this year, Infinite Impact.
Hey,
Um, and I've got my signed copy
so pretty.
with a
Yeah.
nice
Nice.
with a nice note. And we're kind of, I mean, it's two different songs. Maybe yours a little specific, more specific, and mine's a little bit more general. But um, we're philosophically aligned. We're both trying to look at truth and see what's what. Infinite Impact. If I had to kind of give a what it is that you're doing with it is it seems like what you're trying to do is you're trying to identify and amplify the authentic and unique voices of people who want to help other people. How would you how would
Yeah, well,
you
that's great. I love that.
I got that. I
I
got it.
really I want to help individuals experience their own personal freedom.
Okay.
And to me, freedom comes when we can be fully open and self-expressed and say the things we really want to say. And I'm advocating that you would do that in a kind and aware, compassionate, empathetic delivery. But I want people to feel not stifled and not closed, not guarded. I want them to be open and empowered and really share what's in their heart to share, not trying to fit into the mold of humanity.
That's fantastic. And when you talk about that kindness and empathetic, I think what that is it's called for because it's a recognition of the connectedness that we all have, right? The separateness is a bit of an illusion. It's a bit of a temporary thing. The longer term, the bigger you take the aperture out, the more you see the connectedness and the universality between our experiences. Having said that, we're all our unique snowflakes. Nobody has your fingerprints. Nobody's walked through life exactly how you have. And a lot of our meaning comes from the meaning we feel, the fulfillment we feel comes from recognizing what is that uniqueness about and how do we develop that and express it into the world to make a positive difference for people, right? I mean, that's what it kind of comes down to.
100%. I mean, the experiences that you lived, the trauma that you lived, or the memories, good, bad, whatever they are, I mean, it has an imprint on you and it gave you a certain language model. It gave you a lens through which to see the world. And that deserves, in my opinion, to be explored.
Mm.
and to be expressed, because whatever you've been through, it gives you the right, in my opinion, to go help others that are experiencing something similar. And perhaps you can shorten their learning curve or just be a friend for them during their time of need. But either way, both contribute to this feeling of deep personal fulfillment. And it absolutely contributes to what I call infinite impact and your legacy. And, I think it's important that we look at who would I be proud to be. And, in my experience, people feel a significant amount of pride when they're helping others and seeing, the impact of that. So, yeah, I totally agree.
Your journey has been one of some really high ups and some lows that nobody would necessarily choose, but but you share a good amount of your story in your book as a way of sort of connecting heart to heart with the reader and making sure that no matter how they might be self-recriminating, self-judging, holding back, uh, you give them permission to be okay with it and ways to get forward with it. Why do you think that is? What is it about you, Amber, that allowed you to be connected to the parts of ourselves that sometimes people don't really want to pay so much attention to?
Well, that's a great question, Tom. I think that it started when I was 6, and I remember being alone in my room, and I was playing with My Little Pony, and I could feel this feeling of hatred seething through the wall. And on the other side of the wall was my older sister's room. And, I don't harbor resentment or judgment for it now, because I think she was never very fond of me because she was just a kid herself and she didn't want to have the responsibility of taking care of me, because my mom, who was a single mom, was gone a lot. And it was just the two of us alone in the house often. And I don't think she wanted that responsibility. And it wasn't even really labeled as her responsibility. It was just sort of assumed and given to her. And so I can tell you I'm in a place of compassion in my life for that now. But back then, as a 6-year-old, I didn't understand why I was alone and why I was so hated. Like what was it about me that wasn't lovable? And
And it's hard not to internalize that, like there's something inherently wrong or unworthy.
100%. So it was really in that moment, that I sort of, I can't say it was like a conscious thought even, but there was this desire implanted in me to go on this quest for personal freedom. And I think in that way, it was this freedom of being trapped alone in my room. You could look at it that way, or just a freedom from being out of a situation that I was extremely uncomfortable to be in. And, what I just went on that journey, and that journey was a very long and very confusing journey, because when you think of freedom, you think, what do I need to get in the outside world to feel free? Do I need to get a man? Do I need to get a house? Do I need to get more dollar bills? Do I need to get a car? Like, this is the journey that most humans take. It's like, what do I need to get so I can finally be happy? And what took me 40 years to really learn is that that wasn't it at all. I wasn't putting my focus in the right place, because what I needed to do was find personal freedom within, and it was already there. It was there the entire time. It's just that nobody told me that it was there, and I couldn't see it for myself, because every time I looked inside, all I saw was ache and some pride, right? Absolute pride, for everything that I was able to accomplish and be and do and experience as a result of those feelings of being trapped, as a result of this quest for personal freedom. But really, it wasn't so nice inside. And there was a lot of misunderstanding and judgment, and misunderstanding that I pointed on myself, and judgment I pointed on myself. It wasn't just outside people doing it. I was the worst critic, because I kept thinking, like, gosh, Amber, you did it again. You were 1 minute late. Your hair wasn't perfect, or whatever it was. Like, it's just nothing was ever good enough, and nothing ever satisfied that feeling of belonging and connection that I really wanted, until I discovered that what I needed to do was trust myself and love myself, connect with myself, and become whole. And as soon as I took that, it was a 4-year journey, Tom, and it was damn excruciating. But as soon as I, continued to lean in and lean in and lean in, I tapped into finally that feeling of personal freedom that I always knew somehow was possible. I knew it was real. And I finally experienced it. I know exactly where it is inside of myself. And guess what? The outside world didn't change at all. I mean, not really. Yeah, I have more of the things, but who cares? I don't need the things. But the freedom comes from within. I feel whole. I'm so grateful. And now I can spend the rest of my life feeling that fulfillment and giving that back to others, which is just going to make me like the most grateful person ever. It's going to be amazing.
You were pointing the whole way through there. What I was getting, the theme that was emerging was sort of the duality of life, where you, like you said, in your room, you felt free. You were free from sort of the daggers that your sister was staring at you. That's a freedom, but the walls of that room were a prison where you leave it and you no longer felt safe. And so, what protects us also constricts us, and
Mm,
that's part of duality in life, that is that be careful of the things that you're clinging to. Be careful of the things that you think you need to keep safe, because odds are very good they're holding you back from that freedom that you so
love that.
elegantly expressed there. And when you said it's always there, I mean, I was thinking about Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, where she could have just, clicked her heels together. It was there the whole time, the whole adventure. And that's a trope that goes through a lot of these stories because it's psychologically true. It's
Yes.
right. And you experience that yourself. And I think so. What does that mean? That means don't despair, right? Because
No,
your freedom, salvation, your transformation, your brighter day, however you want to think about it, is not so far away as it seems. And
absolutely not. And I'd love to touch on this for a second
sure,
because
please.
it's such a passion topic for me right now. We all feel like we have blind spots. You can feel them, you can experience them. Like you're spinning your wheels. Like, why do every time I try to go do X, Y keeps happening? Like, what is going on? And it just feels like you're the only one that's in the dark.
Yeah.
Well, we all feel that way. And in my experience, avoidance is like the keyhole. And if you can, get the key and dare to unlock your own avoidance, there are answers on the other side of that door, answers everywhere. And for me, and this is very subconscious, right? But like, for example, if I really want to shed those 5 pounds, right? Really, really want to do it. But I keep picking up the potato chips, right? And I consciously know I shouldn't pick up the potato chips, but I do it anyway. That's a perfect example of a moment that is actually communicating, hey, buddy, you're avoiding something. And sub the 5 pounds in the potato chips for any experience in life, right? Like, just wish my wife and I could do X, but this happens instead. Or, gosh, why do I go for that extra glass of wine when I know I shouldn't? Why do I binge on Netflix when I know I should? I mean, just pick a topic, right? But if you find yourself unable to push past that, there's a blind spot in there, and avoidance, having this awareness of avoidance, in my experience, is the way through. So simply asking myself, what could I be avoiding in this moment? And when I really started to explore my own avoidance, it was like a magical land. And boy, was I avoiding a lot personally. I can't even believe how much I was avoiding. And I still have a brilliant coach who has been guiding me through this journey of my own avoidance for the past 3 years. And he's able to help me pinpoint specific memories from my past that created a belief, that created a behavior, that created my outcomes. Right.
Mm.
And so I had so many what I call outdated beliefs. Like one of them was, if I'm seen and heard, bad things happen. I touch on that one a lot inside of the book because that's probably one of my biggest ones. And that's because for the first, 18 years of my life, every time I tried to use my voice or I was seen, literally, I get punished, I got jumped, like something bad would happen. And so you have this belief that says, okay, well, don't do those things anymore. And then imagine how it impacts your behaviors. That means that as I grew into adulthood, I was better just to be invisible and help everybody else get into the spotlight. But I avoided fixing that. I avoided leaning into it and studying it and course correcting it. And so naturally, as I arrived at 40, there were all sorts of things that I was not experiencing in my life because of this outdated belief. But I never would have unpacked all of that if I hadn't explored my avoidance first. And so now, on the other side of this whole entire journey, I've had to pick apart these little tiny details and feelings in my life everywhere and make course corrections and changes, shifting my beliefs that shifted my behaviors. It shifted me right out of a marriage that was out of alignment for me. It shifted me right out of family that was out of alignment for me. It shifted me out of business practice that was out of alignment for me. And little by little, day by day, different decisions, different outcomes. Now, on the other side of that, I look around and there's just congruence. There isn't avoidance. I've explored those beliefs, I've upgraded them, and now I have a very different experience of the world. And it's really, really powerful. Back to you, your personal power. We have such infinite power. We can't even imagine the power that we hold. I think the way through it is through it. Right? You got to face your fears and do it anyway.
If it was simple, everybody would do it, and we wouldn't be having these kinds of conversations. And I think of a story from your experience that stays with me, where this particular belief, that outdated belief that if you are heard or seen from, bad things happen. I mean, it was a stage experience where your physical, like your voice wasn't working and you had to go on stage. I mean, you're up against a serious force. It's not like a little thing. So I don't want people to think that they're a bad person if they struggle with the potato chips or the Netflix
No.
binging, right? It's the human experience, and it's part of the business we have in this world. But you said something else, I think, two things that we talk about all the time in the Eye of Power, which is it's hard. So why would you try to do it by yourself? You've had a 3-year relationship with a talented coach, and I also know you well enough to know that you get support from lots of places. You're
Sure.
very adept at hearing and seeing and taking inspiration from the people that you encounter.
Yeah.
And I think we can all do that. But to have somebody that's right there that you can really kind of get in, trust,
Yeah.
and then coupled with that, you pointed to the little by little. So in the power world, we call them sustained incremental action. So little things that you're doing
Sure.
over time that might by themselves seem like nothing, but sustained, can make the difference between freedom and feeling like you're a prisoner.
Yeah. All we have is this moment, this
Yeah.
one happening right here, right now. And I really try to really focus in on this moment. And I think to myself, who would I be proud to be in this one moment? How can I elevate this moment? How can I maximize this moment? Right. And so this is a practice, just like going to the gym and exercising a muscle. And over time, your muscle gets bigger. Right. What I do is and work has been extremely helpful for me. It's harder for me to do outside of work because in my work, I'm on Zoom meetings all day long. Right. So I'm with a person in front of me or a group of people, and I completely block the rest of the world. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not thinking about the laundry. I'm not imagining what I'm doing next summer. I am 100% fully focused in on this moment. And then I think to myself, like, how can I make this experience better for the people that I'm in front of? Like, how can I come in with more authentic, genuine, alive energy? How can I get them smiling more? How can I impact them? And how can I transfer good feelings into them and activate them and empower them? And to me, I think that's a whole lot of fun. And when I get out of that meeting, I've just exercised that muscle again. And so, who would I be proud to be? How can I elevate this moment? These are some really simple, easy things that we can be doing. Because if I were to look at, oh my gosh, 10 years from now, I want to be the world's best public speaker, it could be enough to make me never want to take the journey because my gosh, that seems so hard. But in this one moment, standing in front of my friend Tom, yeah, I could make him feel better, which would make me feel better. So cool. I can at least hit that vision in this moment.
I think if people listening to us right now take nothing else from our conversation, that to me seems like the superhighway to our personal power is that habit of being present. Because that's one of the biggest things is we're distracted. We're trying actively, we're putting energy towards distracting ourselves a lot of the
Yes,
time.
right. Oh my gosh, so
And talk
true.
about working against yourself. I mean, we're in that way we can be our own worst enemy in that sense. Um, so that's a big one. So thank you for sharing that, Amber. Let's kind of evolve into how you kind of because the people that are attracted to you, at least how I've seen, because we've been together in person in conference, we've been on Zoom calls with groups, and so I've encountered a bunch of people, all of which I very much value and I'm impressed with. So you have a habit and a knack for attracting people who are genuinely wanting to be of service to their fellow humans. That's the thing that I really, or one of the things I'll say that
Sure.
connects everybody and is part of the Amber Vilhauer magic, and that goes into the
Sure.
NG Academy. It goes into the book. It goes into all the things that you do. What is it about the offering, the branding, the approach that makes that kind of thing happen?
It's a big question.
Yeah,
It's
it
a
is. But that's
big,
what I
big
want.
question,
We don't have to
but
answer
I
it
love
all at
it.
once.
I love that question. Gosh, there's so many ways I could take that. So in Infinite Impact, there's an exercise. It's a grouping of exercises in part 2 of the book called the Foundational Four Framework. And it basically speaks into 4 very well-known business pillars that I teach differently than other people teach. So the first one is avatar, commonly taught as who is your ideal audience? The way I teach it is what is the one person, the representative of that audience? What is the one person that you will be in service to and impact from this moment forward? Them and them alone. The second pillar would be vision. So instead of the vision being this big pie in the sky, out of reach goal that most people never hit, and therefore they don't really believe it's even possible, and therefore they fall short and barely even try in the end of the day. I suggest that vision is what are we doing in this exact moment that's going to leave the impact? So I can have a vision in each and every moment. My avatar is a woman named Heather, and my vision is to help the individual in front of me to feel heard, seen, and valued. Okay. The third pillar is why. Now, what I have found is why and vision tend to be very closely related in the way that they're taught, right? Like, I want to help 10 million people. Why? Because I want to help people. Right. So usually vision is just a metric that stands in front of your why. But I propose that why is actually your deepest unmet need. And it's an unmet need that you and your avatar share. So my deepest unmet need is freedom. The fourth pillar is core values. And, generally the way that those are taught, absolutely fair. I just expand on it by suggesting that you come up with your core values and really come up with them. Like you actually explore what you value and why, and you challenge it so that you have your deepest core values. And then I suggest you come up with your own unique definition for each of them. And then you can summarize them in a paragraph so that like you've really explored your core values. So these 4, we have avatar, vision, why, and values. That's the foundational 4 framework that's an infinite impact. If the avatar, vision, and why is what helps you get in alignment, values is what helps you stay in alignment. So all of these 4 things, Tom, really answer your question. How do I attract in these people? Well, the values become my language, right? I believe in meaningful connection. I believe we're better together. I believe that we need to lean in. I believe in being deeply fulfilled. I believe in unwavering excellence. So when I use those words in my marketing, my avatar Heather wakes up and she says, "Oh my gosh, connection, it's everything," right? And I know that the more I talk to Heather in a certain way, with the attitude of wanting to make sure that I see her, I hear her, I value her, I do that in every interaction, Tom. It's not just in my Instagram reel, it's in my email newsletter, it's in my speeches, it's in the way I make business decisions. It's all the time, always, always to Heather, always with that vision to make her feel heard, seen, and valued, always with the language of my core values. And in terms of that why, coming back to freedom, it is now so obvious to me that, in marketing, you want to meet the needs of your customers, right? Well, if what Heather needs more than anything is to feel and experience freedom, then I would say the light that shines on everything I just said is the unmet need of freedom. So what I can do is I can emote free. And your way of expressing free is different than mine, right? But for me, you see it expressed in how smiley I am and how I use my hand motions and how I sit up straight in my chair and how I'm leaning forward. And I am just so open as an individual that Heather on the other side is like, man, how do I get some of that for me? Because
Yeah.
she's the opposite. She's hiding, she's shrinking, she doesn't use her voice. She's not dressed up or dolled up or taking care of her appearance very much because she'd rather be invisible,
Mm.
right? She has made choices to be invisible in the world because that's what she feels on the inside. So if through my marketing and through my way of being in the world, I can help her see freedom, I can help her experience what happens when you're seen, heard, and valued. Man, I could be selling dog biscuits and she'd buy all of them, right?
Right.
So it's just the new way of marketing. It's a new way of doing business. And infinite impact is not just for entrepreneurs, though. Literally, this foundational four framework is the key to naturally, organically, easily, and quickly growing your business. Anything that you want is possible once you're in alignment. I'm living proof of it. But it's not just for entrepreneurs because really, this is like a sneaky backdoor, easy way of learning about yourself. And like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I've been craving freedom. So if I can meet my own needs, oh my gosh, do you know the power that gives an individual when they know how to meet their own needs for the first time in their life? Anything becomes possible when you know how to meet your own needs. So I'm really proud of it. I'm really, really proud of it.
And you should be, as you lay that out. And of course, it's a lot for somebody to take in. That's why you need to get the book. And we'll have a link for it, of course. But and the book is, I'll say, it's a workbook too. It's not like the kind of book you just
Right.
read and forget about. You're walking through these pillars and these processes as you go through it. So you do the exercises, you do the work. You're going to take those actions that we were pointing to that'll move you down the. So it's not just an intellectual exercise. What I experienced in meeting you a year ago, and you were in the process of creating the book when we met.
Yep.
And I mean, you were you'd been along the way quite a bit with it, but you had sort of a beta copy that you were getting. And when we were talking, it wasn't that far away from what I was doing with the Eye of Power. And we're like, okay. And I was curious, so I took a look at it, and I thought it was fantastic. And you were able to get this thing launched in a Herculean way.
It was.
But
Yeah, it really was.
but it had and that's a story in and of itself. But the
Yeah.
thing I want to underscore here is the Amber superpower. You're kind of explaining it because I remember in those early conversations, I felt like because it was around the idea of me coming down to a books and business conference and maybe participating, and we were brainstorming about that. And I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was getting into. Uh, Somebody who'd been to the first one said it was a great thing. I should do it. I believed him, so I looked into it.
But
But
I wanted you as a speaker. I mean, because everything that you were talking about in the Eye of Power, I just believed in. So I said, there's something here that we need to explore. And I'm so glad that you came and spoke. It was so valuable.
thank you. And again, we're just we're both sort of coming at it from our journeys
Sure.
and looking at it and saying, okay, here's what it seems to be the deeper realities that we all have to face. And but what I experienced with you was something that at that same conference, especially toward the end, everybody was sort of sharing what they got out of it and and one of the attendees, just an absolutely sweet, brilliant, insightful woman, uh, she stands up and she says to you, you're on stage and drinking it all in, and she says to you something effective, "I thought I was your one."
Yeah.
Like, and she found out like in the course of 30 some odd people in the room, like everybody felt that way about you. And she was like inspired, but also like, I thought I was the special one. But that was her experience of you. And everybody in the room knew what she meant by that.
Yes.
And that is, and that is, I think the superpower that you're pointing to is when you're present with somebody and you've been working on it either I don't know exactly how you gave a little bit of the reasons how you've got to this place, but uh, it's a God part of it's a God given thing too. Let's not diminish what it is. It's a
I don't
gift.
know.
It's a
I
gift. It
I
can be
had to
learned.
work pretty hard to get here.
It can be learned, but what you specifically do is you, and other people can do it their way, and,
Sure. Sure, sure,
and
sure.
yeah, and and all I want to say there is that that is a superpower that we could all benefit by being present for people. You know, the successful politicians, the successful people in business have that kind of ability to make people feel seen and heard. Great leaders, that's essentially what you're doing. You're giving people the gift of being acknowledged, seen for, especially for who they really are. If you can see the person for who they really are, what a tremendous gift that is. And you said it yourself. People go through life and they're trying not to be seen.
Hmm.
So they're robbing themselves from that gift. So if they encounter somebody that comes along in their life that gives them that gift, it can be very profound.
Well, and anybody has the ability to see others for who they truly are, but it's something that you have to practice and focus on just like anything else. With that belief, when I am seen and heard bad things happen, I wanted
Mhm.
to be invisible. Well, if you're invisible, you're not the loudest one in the room. And then what happens is you basically keep your mouth shut and you start paying attention to what's going on around you. So I
Mhm.
became the ultimate observer. And I looked at body language. I looked at voice inflection. I looked at who was the loudest one in the room. And, I saw when that person was talking, there were other people that were trying to have a voice too, and it would get shut down. And then they would start to get disinterested and then they would get disempowered. And I would just watch all of this over and over and over for 18 years. I just observed because nobody wanted to know what I thought. They weren't asking me questions. And I learned that that was okay anyway. So I think that what happens, especially now more than ever since COVID, Tom, what happened is people started going inward and honestly, maybe unknowingly, unintentionally became self-obsessed,
Mhm.
self-obsessed. So now it's me, 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 my experience, my needs, my reality, blah, blah, blah. It's like why people are honking in traffic. They're so mad that I was literally yesterday, Todd, I couldn't even believe it. Had my blinker on forever because the guy that was in the lane, he could have let me in and he zoomed right past me and like, okay, buddy, you got one ahead. Good job. So now
Yeah.
I'm still having my blinker on. I'm waiting, waiting, and there's a guy kind of behind me. So I slowly, slowly move over and he honks at me. And I was driving two passengers. We all burst into laughter, right? Because like this is a perfect example of what a lot of people are experiencing. The guy is so mad because I got ahead of him or whatever he was mad about. It doesn't even matter. But when we are so focused inside, and again, I don't think it's intentional. I don't think most people are aware of it because they're coping so hard right now just trying to hang on through all of the change that's happening, all of the uncertainty, all of the lies and fear and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot going on right now. So I'm not shaming people, but what's happening is like we're not looking outward at what's in front of us. And that's so sad to me because you're missing such an opportunity to connect and to love and feel better, right? A friend of mine has this phrase that says off self on purpose. And maybe there's some version of that that you could adopt to just when I go out on stage, Tom, and you get all the jitters. Oh my gosh, I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid. What if I choke? But that's me thinking about myself in that moment. I'm self obsessed about my presentation and how I'm going to deliver it and what I'm going to get on the other side of it. What's at stake for me. So when I go on stage, I just say, this isn't about me. This is about them. This isn't about me. This is about them. And when I transfer that weight into the audience, all of a sudden I'm free again and I'm whole and I can just be in service. And when I'm in service to the moment that's unfolding in front of me, I can enjoy the heck out of it. And now all of a sudden, I'm not feeling some of those other things that would have weighed me down and only made my experience more difficult. Right. So it's like, isn't this interesting that we
Yeah.
always have the choice at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the framing, right? I mean, and I had the probably the most profound experience in my life on this way, actually at the B&B event last spring, where you have the opportunity to be up there, and everybody gets a chance to go up there. And what I was going to do is I was going to make the
For three
perfect
minute
Eye of
speeches,
Power
right?
commercial. And I
Yep.
had it completely memorized. I
Yep.
worked hard on it actually. I never did this before. I've never tried and I've been in front of groups lots, and I'm not normally nervous or anything like that. But what I never do is try to remember a rehearsed script and perform it perfectly. So I get up in front of the room, gone. I can't remember any part of it. And so I'm sitting there going, wow, this is really interesting. And then I couldn't think of anything to say other than that. So so
Yes.
it was a real short circuit, but I'm so glad it happened because it showed me exactly what you just said. I was there for my purpose, and whatever part of myself, I don't know exactly how it works, but said, no, you're not going to do that. That's not how we work here. I'm not exactly, I don't know what happened, honestly. It's a
Well,
very,
part of it too is that we are so trapped in our minds of what we think we need to say and do. And I really believe that the power that we have in our being is by connecting heart to heart.
yeah,
And so, what I observed in that moment, Tom, was you kept trying to recall the speech in your mind. And
yeah,
I was saying, no, no, throw it out. Doesn't matter. Open up your heart and tell us what you want to share then. And
yeah,
as soon as you opened your heart, oh my word, I wish everybody could have seen it. It was a symphony. It was so beautifully laid out, so natural, so effortless. You were having fun. And guess what? I observed the heck out of the room in that moment because watching this was one of the greatest moments of my life,
wow,
watching that moment with you. And all of a sudden, you were having fun. It was just coming through you like silk. The audience was so captivated. You could have heard a feather drop in that room. I mean, it was just the connection was electric in that room. I have goosebumps just recalling it in my mind right now. And it's because that is the power of being open, not hiding, not thinking, not being transactional, not pre-planning, not being strategic in, what do I get out of this? But it's really just in opening up and sharing, being in service, connecting, and the rest is out of your control anyway. So you might as well have fun with it. I'm not totally picking on you here. This is a big,
Mhm.
broader statement that I'm making here, but wow, was that magical? It was such a divine moment. Loved it.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the opportunity. And I wouldn't change a thing. It was, I mean, I would next time I wouldn't do the same thing, but I'm
No,
glad
it's
for that
perfect.
experience because I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
And but what I'm wondering then is for people hearing us talk about this, how might they
Mm-hmm.
express themselves into the world in that sort of open, non uh,
Mm-hmm.
intellectual way, more of that heart to heart way?
Mm-hmm.
What's your guidance along that? Let's even if they're not an entrepreneur, just somebody who's going to
Totally.
work.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
requires self trust. That's number one.
self trust.
It requires self trust. And the second thing that it requires is listening to your instincts, your intuition, your gut instinct on a thing, right? So I'll give you an example of when I was 27 years old and I'm sitting in front of my computer and I'm writing an email newsletter to my list as I do every Tuesday. And I'm in the middle of writing this email, and my instinct pops up and says, oh, right, holy cow, right here at the end of this sentence. And so what happened was the instinct came up and I listened, and my brain kicked in and said, what? That's not professional. That people aren't going to like that. That's such a silly thing to say. You're not a silly brand. What are you think? Don't do that. Don't do that. But my heart said, I like saying holy cow. And I think that it would be perfectly inserted here. And I think it would land really well. So, as a bit of an experiment, Tom, I put holy cow in the newsletter and I sent it. And then my brain starts sweating. It's like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? Oh my gosh, this is so stupid. Why did you even do this? Right. Like I start wishing I hadn't sent it. And this 78-year-old woman named Rhonda replied. And she, in text, was roaring with laughter and said, I love that you just said, holy cow. I love that so much. I say it all the time. Instantly, my heart is so happy. I feel connection. And that nagging voice in my brain telling me it was stupid just went away. It never came back. And in that moment, congruence was achieved.
Mm.
And so it's such a simple story, but it really illustrates that you already know what you want to say. You already know what you feel. The problem is that your brain kicks in and says, oh my gosh, you can't tell your wife that. She'll go ballistic. You can't wear that shirt. Nobody's going to like it. It has a hole in the side. What were you even thinking trying to even innovate that haircut? It's a hard no, man, right? It's like our brains are trying to quote protect us, but actually I think it just keeps us in hiding. And so if we can just start to really listen to our instincts and use our voice and share, I think you'd be really surprised how good you feel and how other people that value what you value, that are like you, will just think you're the bee's knees. They will think you are great. And that's very validating. But if you try to hide the truth of who you really are, you will feel miserable. You will feel disconnected from society. You will feel get disconnected from yourself. You will feel disconnected in your marriage. You will feel disconnected to your work. And then you will drink more. You will eat more. You will binge more. And all of these other things happen because you're in avoidance and you're coping and you're trying to avoid what's really going on. And in my experience, Tom, business owner or not, what's really going on at the end of the day is people are not being open and honest about who they really are and what they're really feeling. And so that's how you do it. You listen your instincts and act on them.
Listen to that voice that wants to be seen and heard, and let it go, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We we covered a lot, and I think we've given some
I
some
just love talking to you.
major
So
things.
fun.
um, Going forward in what might people, I mean, just if they just took that one thing you said there about that intuition and being congruent and having that self-trust, acknowledgement that if it's there, it's not there for no reason at all. It's there for a reason, and
Mm-hmm.
to respect that and possibly have what I talk about a lot is a sense of discovery, exploration, play, right? We're way too serious a lot of the times, right? It's like just play. Like the holy cow. I mean, what's the stakes? I mean, someone
I
doesn't
know.
like
Isn't
it. I
that
mean,
so silly?
yeah, I mean, and but we do this to ourselves all the time,
Yes.
and I think if we can foster a sense of play more, that's part of the permission that we give ourselves, is if we do it as a sense of experimentation and play, just to see, and a little bit of a lighter touch. I think that's possibly a way that people can move forward. It's hard to play when people are trying to scare you all the time, and we've got lots of things we could be scared about in the world. But I say that fear is somewhat optional. You can't control what everyone else is doing anyway. So to put fear towards it is pretty much a waste of energy. So it's much better to channel our energy towards the things that we can influence. And those are tend to be internal things, right? What we think and what we say and what we do and how we behave and how we frame things, those are things that we can take an active hand in, and that's what we've been talking about in the scope of the world. I'm just curious, before we wrap up, your view of if somebody's out there thinking, okay, I'm going to put a book out, or I should put a book out, or I have this thing, I'm sort of I want to be seen more. What do you think they should think about as it relates to the path ahead right now, that they either might be holding on to that's not true, or that something that is true that they might consider?
Let's see if I'm going to take that where you want me to take that.
Well, take it wherever you can take it. We'll go from there.
Well, I was really, I was hanging on something that you were talking about earlier, and it reminded me of why we have a hard time playing right now. And I think that actually bridges into that idea of writing a book and getting it out into the world or being visible or self expressed, right? And I think why we have a hard time playing is because of these memories that we might have had in childhood that formed these beliefs that, changed our behaviors and outcomes, right? And it just sort of brought me back to this memory of, my mom was a single mom, as I mentioned, and she really liked the house clean because then she could just cope better with the mountainous volume of her responsibilities and the pressures and how little time she had, et cetera. So I just learned from a very young age that you had better keep the house clean. And she leaned pretty neurotic into it because I remember we had a big Oriental rug with the phrase at the end. And she would, we'd be both on our hands and knees and she would teach me how to comb the fray in a
Oh,
certain
wow.
direction. Or when I was vacuuming, she'd say, no, you have to vacuum in a perfect line. And it was always like the lines in the carpet, and that strictness that she had because she was just coping herself then was sort of passed down to me where I was just coping by being strict about cleaning. And now that's as far away from play as one gets, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Play is more like, oh my gosh, look at the phrase in the rug. What kind of animal shapes could we make in them? Right?
Exactly.
Oh boy, that would not happen in my household, right? So I think what's happening though is that all of humanity had some upbringing like that it wasn't my mom's fault. She was just coping because of her circumstance and also what happened to her when she was a kid. But somebody's going to have to break the generational chain. Somebody's going to have to do it. And, I've been reading up on, intergenerational family trauma and how it gets passed down. And I have decided in this lifetime that I'm going to break generational chains. And the way that I show up for Clay, my son, as a single mom, it's completely different. It's so different, Tom, that this is a kid who a couple months ago, he actually got a little upset asking me, Mom, you pick me up right when school gets out. Can you please pick me up last? And I said, I'm sorry, what did you just say to me? And he said, I want to be the last person to get picked up at school because I like being there so much and I like my friends and I'm having such a good time. I had literally the polar opposite experience in school. I hated it. I wanted to be the first to get picked up. I couldn't wait to get out of there. And so this is one of so many examples that I could give you, Tom, that he now is having a completely different experience. He's having a healthy, positive experience in childhood, even in a separated home. He feels safe in the world. He feels loved in the world. And I encourage play. I encourage downtime and rest. And so you'll find us a lot of times out in the backyard throwing ball together and going on our bikes and building things together and being silly and drawing and dancing, right? Just because why not? So, all to say, I do think that there's a systemic change that needs to happen. You need individuals who are brave enough and strong enough and disciplined and focused enough to break generational patterns and to choose play and to choose to be visible and to choose to say whatever it is that you want to say and just get it off your chest into that book the way you want it to be written. Don't try to fit into a mold. Be you. If you want to say holy cow, you say holy cow, right? I just again encourage that you wrap it in kindness. I'm not encouraging you to be nasty in the world. We don't need any more of that. But, I think that's the key. It's less about the formula for rating a book or even the formula for launching the book. It's more about, can you be open and say what you really came here to say? That's what I would challenge listeners to think about.
I love it. I'm thinking, for some reason, what came into my mind was at the end of the movie Bruce Almighty. He says,
I love
you
that.
know, be the miracle, right?
Yeah. Be the miracle.
And yeah, that's our job.
It is. It's
Yeah.
your legacy. Like, how do you want to be remembered? How do you, like, when you get to the end of your life and you're looking back, are you going to be proud of it? Are you going to be glad that you made the choices that you made? Because as far as we know, this is it. This is our one and only life. And we have no idea how long we're going to be living and breathing here. No clue. But the moment in front of you is what matters.
Well, and through that moment in front of you, you never know what those ripple effects are. Hence, you never know how you might
Yes.
go out into the world in ways that you'd never predict. We never know. And another movie that always comes to mind is "It's a Wonderful Life" because we don't
Yeah.
get that. We don't get that that gift that Clarence gave George Bailey to see what the world's like without you. But I guarantee that the world would be a lot dimmer and a lot darker if it wasn't for the fact that Amber Vilhauer is in the world. So thank
Oh,
you so much, Amber.
I love you, Tom. Thanks
You
for
know,
having me.
my pleasure. Amber, thanks so much for joining me today. My great pleasure to see you as always. Infinite Impact, remember that. Get that book. It's fantastic. It lays out in greater detail a lot of what she talked about with the four pillars and avatar and finding our authentic voice, becoming in alignment, all those sorts of things. A fantastic resource to achieve those things. She really laid out some great things for us to remember. I just want to highlight a couple of them. Probably the biggest thing is she talked about her freedom and freedom being her value, and it was a direct result of her experience in perhaps not feeling free. So it's those things, and she said the why comes from our deepest hurts are really what it is that we need to address, and that's where we get meaning and emotion, so we get purpose from that. Those things that you feel, and of course being seen and heard is a universal. I think that's something we can all relate to. And the question is, in what way? And that's for you to discover and of course, if you're in this world and listening to me, you've been doing that already. But we can always amplify it, right? That it's a life's a journey. So along that journey, that giving that voice, listening to that intuition, those are fantastic words. She emphasized in kind, empathetic ways. And I think that's important too. Our voice is not one. If your voice is angry, or if it's bitter, or if it's wanting to attack or hurt other people, it's probably not all the way down to the bottom. You're probably giving voice to a part of you that's injured, that needs healing, but is not the full expression of um, the the deeper part of yourself, or the fullest expression of yourself. That's going to be much more something along the lines of your unique gifts, your things that you think about, want to do in the world, the difference you make, the problems that you want to solve. That's where you find the clues as to how you find your unique voice. Um, but if you'd like more from Amber, get her book, check out her website, check interface with her world. Fantastic people. I plan on going back to the conferences and being in that world myself. So maybe we'll go to a conference together someday. But thanks again, Amber. Thank you for listening to our conversation today on the Eye of Power.
This has been the Eye of Power podcast with Tom Dardick. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd also like to thank my brother Scott Dardick for the music and his music production. If you'd like to reach me, simply email Tom at dardickcommunications.com.